Matt Chief Davis joining us here on Halftime. He was one of the 2 radio announcers for Oklahoma State baseball, and you also run some of the facilities for this fine university. Does that mean you run this facility that we're in right now?
I'm part of it, yes. I'm part of it. I've been with Oklahoma State Athletics for 27 years. I was a long time football equipment manager and baseball equipment manager. And my old boss we used to work over at Alley P as students together. He came back and offered me a step up into the admin side, and I took it. But I still obviously do baseball, just not equipment anymore, just traveling the color man on the Cowboy Baseball Networks.
I don't know many former equipment managers that got into radio. You've got a unique story here.
I do. Well, it used to be our old, actually Ryan Fulmer, who's the head coach at Oral Roberts now. He was our director of baseball operations. Well, he got into coaching, so he left. So then the SID kind of did it for a year or two. Then he left, and Rex was like, hey, you're around these guys every day. You know the game. You played the game. Why don't you just come up and sit up there and help me do color? This is Rex's 41st or 42nd year.
Mm-hmm.
So about 18 years ago, I went up in the booth with him, and the rest is history.
And it's a nicer booth now.
It's a much nicer booth.
It's a great. Why
not get asbestos here like we would in the old park?
No kid. I told people about that with that soundproofing in the visiting radio booth.
Right.
I was afraid to walk in there sometimes.
What I did, Toby Rowland at Oklahoma, he's their play-by-play guy. When they were here for football, I took a piece of that foam. I should have brought you a piece and put it up there and said, your life has now been extended, but I wanted to give you this token of Alley P. Reynolds Stadium, and here it is.
You realize how good it feels to be validated now that I was like, this booth probably causes cancer.
No, and I'm going to validate it for you, man. I don't disagree with you.
Well, I mean,
I didn't know if Phil was. I didn't think Phil was lying, but I thought he might have been stretching the truth just a bit.
No. Ask Chuck Barrett. Chuck Barrett used to go over there all the time. Yeah.
Chuck would know. That's for sure.
Chuck would know.
But it's not. I mean, here's one of the things though. Like all the facilities on campus here. I haven't been into Boone Pickens Stadium, but I know it's spectacular. I've been into Gallagher-Iba. I love that place. Softball's great. Tennis is great. It's just that baseball wasn't up to par. It's so great to see that they finally have a ballpark that meets the quality of the program and the other facilities here.
You're exactly right, and people like the University of Arkansas help push that needle too. All the upgrades that they've done at Baum Walker, and one of my absolute all-time favorite venues to go to over there in Fayetteville, as I like to say. I'm sure you guys say that quite often as well, but that's one of my favorite ballparks, and some of this was from that ballpark we took. This ballpark, South Carolina's ballpark, we played them in a super regional. That's some pieces we took from them, and also Bricktown Ballpark in Oklahoma City. Yep. And so we all kind of, everybody had their 2 cents on this park and how it sets up and how it plays. And obviously the corrals out there in the outfield when you get the grills going, smoking. It's kind of an SEC feel here in the Big 12.
Yeah, I could see this would be a great. This would fit into the other parks in the SEC. There's no doubt. What's the temperature of the fan base here? Because none of the players, I know Coach Holliday was around when Arkansas came through and won the Stillwater Regional in 2015, but none of the players were here for that. Heck, most of them were kids then.
Right.
What's the temperature in Stillwater, knowing that the last time Arkansas came in here in a regional, they shocked Oklahoma State, and it was a surprise OSU didn't make it to the final that weekend.
Yeah, I believe it. You guys came back and beat us, and then St. John's, if I can remember right, put us.
That's right.
St. John's put us out. Ben Attendee was roaming center field.
Yes, he was.
And, was it Spoon?
Yeah, you remember the guy with the spoon, right?
Yeah,
Ken Atkins had the spoon. He wasn't even allowed to bring it in.
Exactly right. And guys like old heads like me, you, and Josh Holliday, we remember all this, but these guys don't obviously remember that kind of stuff. But no, definitely Arkansas came in at Alley P. Reynolds, and the place was juiced. You can remember it. And that old ballpark was unique, but boy, it could get loud now. It could get rowdy. And of course, Arkansas they're fit for that, right? They face that in the conference they're in every weekend. It's not like it's a little different than when you go to Ole Miss and we roll into Lawrence, Kansas. Just a little bit different feel. And you guys took it to us that weekend and won that regional, and went on to Omaha, right?
Yeah. Well, lost 2 close ones in Omaha, but they beat Missouri State in the Super Regional that year. Got a little lucky. They got to play that at home. It was supposed to be in Springfield. When I haven't watched Oklahoma State play this year, but when I look at the stats, I think about the coaching staff, this looks like a very balanced team. Good in the field, solid pitching staff. They've got power, maybe not tons of power throughout the lineup, but enough where it's filtered throughout the lineup. You can steal a couple of bases.
Right.
Would you describe this as an overall well-balanced team?
I would say so, yeah. We've got a few guys that can run. Rotation, first 2 guys pretty good. We've been dealing with the injury with our third guy. Not sure if he's going to be available this week or not. Bryce Osmond, big arm for us this year. And offensively, if you come to play baseball in Stillwater, Oklahoma, we're recruiting guys that can turn and burn, right? The south wind, and we're known for the home run. So the power is sprinkled in there as well. But you're right, more of a balanced team. a lot of guys can run a really athletic outfield, and some 3 or 4 freshmen that play a ton for us.
Well, I hear a lot about Justin Campbell.
Right.
I'm told that if Arkansas wins against Grand Canyon and Oklahoma State defeats Missouri State, then you're going to face one of the best, if not the best pitcher in this regional, and certainly one of the best in the country, and a guy that's coming from way up on high.
Yeah, he had a really good outing, his last outing. Kind of stumbled a little bit the 2 starts before, but obviously that's hard to do, hard to keep that consistency up. But last start out against Baylor, he completely choked those guys out. They barely even got to second base. I mean, he was that good that day, dominant. He's a 4-pitch mix, 90-94. What's the thing about him, Phil, is when the pressure goes up, he might be set 90 to 92, and then you look up and strike 3, it'll flash a 5.
Wow.
Like he really elevates his game depending on how tough that situation is. And, no, he's definitely the bell cow.
Yeah, man, I think all of us would like to kind of go ahead and look towards Saturday and look at this Arkansas-Oklahoma State matchup. But we talked about today that it's not going to be easy for Arkansas to get through Grand Canyon. It's not a guarantee. And it's not really technically a guarantee that y'all are going to get through Missouri State. This is the second time y'all have seen them this year. Had the 5-1 win on Tuesday. In y'all's first game, well, what do you really expect to get out of Missouri State before, hopefully having the chance to play Arkansas?
Well, I know they stumbled throughout the year as far as their record was, but what we know we're going to get is a red-hot Missouri State team walking in here who just won their conference tournament. Obviously, it was in their ballpark, but still, you got to go out and you got to win it, and that's exactly what they did. And they got a lot of power. They got a lot of power up and down their lineup. Katowski, some of those guys that I remember vaguely from this year, and so they can swing it. I think where they struggle has probably been on the mound. Their numbers haven't been fantastic on the mound, but you remember last time we played Missouri State in a regional was over in Fayetteville, and we got walked off by Jeremy Ironman, a home run down the right field line, just sliced in into the bullpen there in Fayetteville. So yeah, last time we played Missouri State in a regional, we actually got walked off against those guys.
That was 2017, right?
In Fayetteville. Yeah, it was. The year after we went to Omaha in 16-17, we had to win the conference tournament to even qualify for the NCAA tournament. We did, and then Ironman, that shortstop, hit one out, and then we lost to Oral Roberts game 2. Actually went 2 in barbecue there in Fayetteville. So. Yeah, so we know, and obviously Coach Gutney's been there for 40 years, and they're a regional opponent we play yearly. So, no, a lot of familiarity with those guys, and you're right. Grand Canyon can beat anybody in this. We played them in the 3 games to open Obrate last year, and then we played them in the Tucson Regional last year. Actually finished their season last year in Tucson against those guys, and we know how Coach good a job Stanky does, Coach Stankiewicz. And, no, very good regional. Anybody can walk out of this thing. Wouldn't surprise me at all. And, looking at Arkansas's numbers, because I've seen a few times. I got SEC Network, so I get to watch some of your games. But it looks like the bullpen, to me, Phil, has been just fantastic. Yeah. I mean, just the numbers. The starters, obviously, Wiggins and Nolan, those guys that I remember their names for years being around. But then I looked inside their bullpen, and I saw Ramage and Tiger. I saw some of those guys, and I'm like, man, those guys have pitched in very high-level, high-leverage situations in Omaha. So they're going to be battle-tested in that bullpen. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it looked like that bullpen was a pretty good strength.
The bullpen's very good, but there's been a little extra pressure on them in the last 3 weeks because I'd have to go back, but I think it's been 11 or 12 games since Arkansas got a 5-inning start. There's been a lot of pressure on the pen. They've had to pitch more innings recently than they did in the first 9 weeks when starting pitching was the big strength of this team. So that's one thing I'm paying attention to for tomorrow is to see Connor Nolan give them a start, like actually get out there and give 6-7 innings, because I think the pen's going to need to be, what you're going into with a regional. Like, you're going to pitch back-to-back games. You might pitch 2 games the same day, but you don't want to have to get into the bullpen deep on Friday.
Right. And when you got a guy like Nolan rolling out there, he's a veteran guy. You expect him to have a solid start tomorrow. I mean, he's been through this. This is no surprise to him at all. And yeah, that's the thing is, and you look at Sunday games, that kind of tell you where your pitching is. If you get in your bullpen early, and especially the league you're in, and Friday and Saturday, that Sunday game is usually the first 1 to 10. Those things get out of hand because you don't really extend guys during the year on Sundays. But to this thing, like you said, it's a whole different deal. Remember, I've watched the Dave Van Horn team beat us once in the Big 12 tournament. And his starting pitcher, Shane Comini for Nebraska,
I remember, little lefty.
Yeah, threw like 172 pitch complete game against us. So not to say that Dave's going to do that, but I've seen starters get extended before. So
I remember watching Comini. Maybe he was a righty, but he was a little guy from Hawaii.
Yeah, he's right-handed, but he was like 5 pitches, and sometimes it was like 8. Like you're just making stuff up.
I saw him in the athletics organization.
And you look at him, you're like, and then boom, 95, and you're like, what is that coming out of that arm, man?
Hey, Matt, before we go, because we got a couple minutes left here.
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't know a greater group of coaches than what we have in these 4 teams in the entire tournament.
Right.
And you look at the success of Coach Gutton and Coach Van Horn, and certainly Josh Holliday in his 10 years too, and Andy Stankiewicz, and what they've done what Stank did in the big leagues.
Right.
And, I mean, your coaches. So what class is Robin Ventura taking to be categorized as a student assistant?
Like I said, he's Thurston Mellon, right? He's back to school doing the triple Lindy. Man, he's just been fantastic. That laid-back California attitude. You can see why he's been so successful in this world. Like I said, he just got his sheepskin. He got his graduate degree. But so I said, well, you're going to try to, maybe move to a full-time job here. And he's just like, no, because then there'll be expectations.
That's right.
People are going to expect me to come to work at like 8. That ain't happening. So no, he's just fantastic. He does a great job of dumbing things down for the guys too and relaxing, and it's awesome. The guys they don't understand how good they got it sometimes. You got Robin Ventura, you got Matt Holliday, obviously Josh and Rob Walton, surrounded by a big time coaching staff, and you hit the nail on the head. The coaching staff that's in this regional, and all really good guys, and they all really get along. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no like grind between any of our coaching staffs, and that's obviously a good thing too, where everybody can come here. Now, granted, things are going to get hot when the game's going on, but very well respect is what I'm saying. Respect across the board for all four of these coaching staff, for sure.
Partners at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, including updated odds on the NBA playoffs, fights, and even next season's futures. And don't forget that the MLB is back as well. Who are you picking to win the World Series? BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino and poker games. It's super easy to get started, so head to the website today or use your mobile device to join and use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.